We are going live. I think we are live now. So I will just look at the camera and say, hey, everybody, thanks for being here. I'm Jefferson Graham. We got Dave Williams here as well. Dave Williams is in England. I'm in Los Angeles. And we are going to talk about photography and iPhone photography and the Northern Lights and all sorts of cool stuff. That Dave, by the way, is an amazing photographer. I'm going to let him tell you about himself as we kick this off. Dave?
Right. Thank you. Yeah, my name's Dave Williams. You can find me on any social media or at the .com of iDaveWilliams, where you can learn anything about me. My photography is largely themed around the Northern Lights and the cold. I am very much a Northern Lights expert and addict, but I also love the Arctic and cold places. So you'll find that although I'm quite well traveled, having gone to 50 countries, I keep going back to the same countries because I enjoy the ambience and the vibe and the terrain and everything they have to offer. So I keep going back to Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Faroe Islands, places like this. And so, yeah, my passion is the Northern Lights and the cold. But you can see me running around all these places in the past few years in my van, and I've documented it on my YouTube channel, again, at iDaveWilliams. I've been into photography since I was about 14. So, good 10 years. I started with a proper film SLR and moved through DSLRs to mirrorless, but I've picked up everything in between. I'm very much into drone photography. And now that everything's evolving at the pace it's evolving, I am loving iPhone photography because the power packed into this tiny device that we have in our pockets is insane. It's so incredibly powerful. And so it blows my mind, and it's a tool we might as well use, especially with Adobe catching up with the software and the post-processing. It makes the whole process very simple.
Well,
So that's
let's remind
very
everybody
much
that both of us are going to be speaking at the KelbyOne iPhone Photography Conference, March 27th, 28th, and 29th. And it's a virtual conference, and we have had a giveaway on this show that one lucky person is
I
going to
heard
win
about this.
free admission to the conference today. We're going to announce that in the second half hour. We have another
Wow.
contest for a few weeks coming up, but I want to hear all about the Northern Lights. I want to hear about Dave's epic no Dave's iPhone settings for epic photos, which we're going to get
Yeah.
into in a minute. That's what he's
Yeah.
going to be speaking about. I'm going to be doing a beginner's guide to iPhone photography and video. First, let's kick off with some news before we jump in there. And by the way, hi Greg, hi Paul, hi Susan, hi Roy. Thanks for being here. News. Okay, we both love the iPhone. Samsung got into some hot water this week because it's been revealed that its moon photos are fake. The
What a surprise.
computational photography went amok. You mean you can't
Yeah.
stand on the Earth and take a really clear, great photo of the moon? And Samsung said, yeah, okay, that's what computational photography is all about. Dave, what's your reaction?
Um, I'm sitting on the fence because AI and machine learning and everything that drives everything that we're seeing at the moment with the way photography is going is computational. The iPhone and the things that certainly me, but I imagine you as well, will talk about at the iPhone photography conference are all about the iPhone photography being computational. It's not taking a photo in the same way that our mind relates to our traditional cameras taking a photo. It is looking at the pixels and assessing the scene and compiling and compositing them in such a way that you expect the result to be. So, for example, when we look at the long and the short of the story with the moon is that you take a photo of the moon with a Samsung was it S22, you zoom in and you can crystal clear picture of the moon. Well, what's actually happening is the software within the camera is recognizing that it is the moon. It's looking at the blurred splodge that you're seeing and it's putting the correct pixels in the correct place because that's what you recognize the moon to be. That's what's happening with everything. When we do long exposures with our iPhone, it's taking a series of photos and stacking them. But even the photos that it takes aren't photos in the same sense of the photos that we get from our SLRs or mirrorless cameras. So it's maths. It's a whole load of maths.
Every photo we take on the iPhone is
Great.
9 photos
Cool.
merged together. And of course it doesn't look, that's why every picture we take looks so great, because, yeah. And ditto for the
When you open
Samsung.
up your iPhone and you look at the camera on your iPhone, and the whole scene is what's the word I'm looking for? It's like HDR. Everything's balanced and exposed perfectly, but with such a huge dynamic range within that scene, it can't possibly be true. That's what's happening.
Right. Yeah,
It's
but
stacking
the pictures are perfect unless they're not, and we're going to talk about how to make them perfect. Let's go on with the news. The iPhone 15 latest rumor mill is that the camera will be more expensive. The top of the line phone will be more expensive. Surprise, surprise. I'm guessing. What do you think? $1,300 for the top of the line as opposed to 11, and convert that into euro. And yeah, what do you think?
Well, they don't. Here's the funny thing about Apple. If a product is $999, it will be €999 and £999. So you just pick the right currency symbol and find the cheapest way to buy it that way, which I think is really interesting.
Okay. I should mention, by the way, if in case I didn't, that Dave is in England right now and I'm in California. The magic of the internet. And Dave was living in a van. I think he still is living in a van, but he's not in a van right now. He's at a friend's house doing this for you. So thank you for that. Many of you are going to have questions. We're going to answer them in the second half hour. The last piece of news is the ChatGPT. Everybody's talking about it. It's the new big thing, as big as the iPhone, as big as the internet, the ability to search and have a conversation with a robot, to which many people this week have said, well, what about Siri? What about Alexa? Boy, those things are total failures now, aren't they? Right? Because ChatGPT, so many. Thank you, Siri. Be quiet. Oh, my God. Amazon, stop. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. Okay, I'm going widescreen for Dave. I'm going to fix this.
Okay. I personally feel sorry for everyone that is named that name, Alexa. I feel really sorry for them because this is what their life is now. So if your name is that word, my condolences. But
Okay.
I think it's really interesting that ChatGPT. So just pulling off the back end of that story, I write Scott Kelby's blog every Tuesday, Travel Tuesdays with Dave. I have done for years and years. I asked ChatGPT to write a post as me for Scott's blog. I said, write a post for scottkelby.com as Dave Williams about travel photography inspiration. And it wrote exactly the same way that I write. It used phrases that I use. It used once in a lifetime as often as you can, which is my tagline that I use on all of my YouTube videos. And it wrote a whole blog post. It freaked me out because it was as if I'd written it. It was in the words that I use in the style that I write. So this stuff is pretty powerful and pretty scary.
Okay,
But we have
so
to harness it.
this has nothing to do with the iPhone, but I had a big, huge argument with Bing today. Bing ChatGPT 4.
Yeah.
I want to read you some of this because many people out there know that wrong piece of paper. Many of you out there know that I play the guitar, and I've played done a lot of guitar videos. And Bing told me that I had played the Pink Panther theme on the guitar, which I hadn't. And I said, no, he hadn't done that. And he said, yes, it did. Yes, you did. Yes, he did. To which I finally said, look, I am me. I'm telling you, I never played the song. And it said, you're lying to me. Why are you trying to be so argumentative? And then Microsoft came in and they said, next subject, please. So there was a pretty fascinating little chat.
Wow.
But anyway, people have tuned in to hear about the iPhone, not about my arguments with ChatGPT. I think we should show some Northern Light pictures, and then we'll talk about the various classes that we'll be doing at the iPhone photography class. So I want to start off with, let's do this one. This is not the Northern Lights. This is Joshua Tree. That's Joshua Tree. Okay, let's go to Northern Lights. That's from the back of a ferry, if I'm correct,
Yeah.
right, Dave?
Yes. So that's an iPhone handheld for 2 seconds using the iPhone camera, not a third party app, and that was between Norway and Denmark on a ferry, and you can see the light in the clouds from the south coast of Norway and on the horizon there, just to
Right.
show the power of the iPhone camera, what it can do.
Okay, so
So those the
for
Northern
people
Lights were
listen,
I could see them, but some people on the boat couldn't see them because they didn't really know what they were looking for. They thought they were clouds, but this just shows how powerful the iPhone camera is.
yeah, so for people listening to the audio edition, this is Dave looking at the back of a ferry with a slow shutter shot of the Northern Lights, green lights in the sky, dark blue. I'm seeing stars, and you were just doing night mode?
Yeah, it was in night mode for a 2 second exposure,
Okay.
handheld.
Pretty incredible. Okay. Hopefully I got this right. Is that an iPhone shot of the Northern Lights?
No, but we can
No.
talk about it.
Okay, go ahead. Tell everybody about it.
So, I'm seeing just the top of the picture, though. Are you able to
Yeah,
change the?
unfortunately, I can't show the whole one. I don't know in Ecamm how to. Uh,
Okay.
wait a minute. Yeah, I'm learning as we. Let's see. I
Oh,
think
here
we
we
got
go.
it there. Yeah.
We've got
Okay.
something different.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
this one's actually a reframed image from a 360 camera.
Okay.
So
So
this one was taken on the Insta 360 R1 RS 1 inch 360 edition is the proper name, but it's the big boy from the Insta 360 range,
okay.
edited with Adobe Lightroom Mobile.
Okay. Hopefully, I got a good. This is an iPhone shot because I believe you labeled it this way.
Yes.
This is a
Yeah.
lady in a big red dress on a ferry
Yeah.
dock with dark skies
Yeah.
behind her. Tell
So
everybody about it.
that's Christina modeling a dress that she made. The shot was taken in Or at the end of Lofoten, and it is taken with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it is lit with a strobe that works with the iPhone, which is the ProPhoto A2, and then it's edited with Adobe Lightroom Mobile. And what I did is I did some dehaze and some darkening in the sky. I did a subject select on her, and then inverted the selection and darkened everything else around her as well. So there's a pop of light from the flash, but then there's some contrast which is added in post.
Okay. The Pro Photo that you talked about, is that the $1,000 light?
Um, the A2 is, I think it's $700 for the A2. It's about the size of a soda can. It's powerful, but it's not powerful enough to overpower the sun. The thousand, I think it's more. I think it's $1,500 one is the B10X, which is more able to overpower the sun. And they
Okay.
work with the ProPhoto camera app, so they're fired from the iPhone with Bluetooth. So they do work with a normal transmitter from your DSLR or your mirrorless, but they will also work from the iPhone with the ProPhoto camera app,
Okay.
which is what I
So
did in this.
when you're snapping the shutter, you're composing it in the Pro Photo app so that you could
Yeah.
click the Bluetooth, right?
Yeah. So when you open the ProPhoto camera app, it automatically connects to the ProPhoto flashes that you've paired it with previously. So it's really sort of fast and seamless. And then you can change the power of the flash, the ISO, and the shutter speed, but you can't change the aperture. So the aperture on the iPhone camera lenses is fixed. I think on
Okay.
the 1X camera, I think it's 2 point, no, it's 1.6. So it's fixed there. You can't change that. So to balance your exposure, you need to change the other settings like the ISO, the shutter speed, and the flash power.
Okay. Now here's another picture of that I know was done on the iPhone because you said so. It's of
Yeah.
Russell Preston Brown, the greatest iPhone
Yeah.
photographer in the world, per me. And why don't you tell everybody about this photo? He's dressed very vintagely, with a big
Mhm.
pipe and a sailor's hat, and you clearly lit this with the Pro Photo as well.
I lit the background with the Pro Photo on this one. So the light hitting Russell is coming from a window that he's looking at, and then the light on his forearm is coming from some candles on the table. So that's why you're getting two different colors of light there. But then the back room that you can see is lit. That's I used the Profoto C1 Plus to pop some light into that room just to emphasize what's going on there, because I think it's interesting. It's like a museum, this building. And so to add to the drama and the character of everything that's happening in that whole photo, I just wanted to show that back room. So I used the C1 Plus to do that. So
Okay.
yeah, Russell's lit naturally with window light and candle light, but then the background is lit with the C1 Plus by Profoto.
Okay. Let's go back to that Joshua Tree photo. Tell everybody about that one. This is Joshua Tree, California. It's not the Northern Lights, but it's a very nice photo of the stars, and a tree.
Are you able
And
to are you able to
uh,
zoom it a bit?
zoom out.
Yeah, because
Uh,
there's a
yeah, I zoomed out so much I lost it altogether, and I
okay.
don't know
So
how. Oh, let's see. How do I get it back? Why don't you tell everybody about it while I search?
sure.
Or
So
I just here I got another Northern Lights shot. Is this
this is
taken on
this is a
Nikon?
this is a yeah Nikon Z6.
Okay, well I know a
So
lot of people are really interested in the Northern Lights, so why don't you tell everybody about the experience and how you know where to go and what time and all that sort of stuff, because this is a great photo.
this particular location is quite a famous location in Lofoten in northern Norway. It's about 200 miles up into the Arctic. Um, these mountains form a very nice little shape here, and the photo is taken from a road called Nusfjordveien, which goes to a very old fishing village called Nusfjord. So, although this is the Northern Lights, in this picture, I'm actually looking southwest. Um, so that arc of light coming up from the bottom right to the top left is going sort of west to east across the sky. Knowing where to find the Northern Lights, well, here's some interesting stuff about the Northern Lights. So they've been going on for years and years and years. Obviously, there are many stories throughout history about what they might have been. So, for example, at this particular location, there would have been lots of Vikings and Norsemen, and they believed that the Northern Lights were this bridge that I'm sure you've heard of from Marvel movies, Bifrost, the bridge over which you go to Valhalla when you go with the Valkyries. Um, so it's the Rainbow Bridge, and that's what they thought the Northern Lights were. But interestingly, just down the road in Sweden, they saw the green light in the sky, and they're very keen on fishing in Sweden, and they thought that the Northern Lights were the reflection of an enormous shoal or school of fish in the sea, and so they called it the herring flash because they thought it was a reflection of so many herring in the sea that if they sailed that way, they must find a lot of cod because the cod eat the herring. So there's lots of interesting stories throughout history, but of course now we know exactly what's causing it and why it happens, and it's all obviously from the sun. We know that, and it's all from solar flares, coronal mass ejections, and essentially it's huge volumes of helium plasma flying through space at breakneck speeds, and we're talking hundreds of kilometers, hundreds of miles per second, not per hour. And they come crashing in through our atmosphere, attracted through our magnetic field through the north and south poles, and they interact with the gases in our atmosphere to create these different colors. So the green that you see there is oxygen. If it's red, it's still oxygen, but it's a higher altitude, so there's a different wavelength coming off of it. So
I
you
think
see
a lot of
a bit.
people want to know is when you're standing there, are you seeing it or does your camera see
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So one of the most common questions is, and one of the most common criticisms on some of my photos on Instagram and various other places, is people say that's not what it looks like in real life. Well, it absolutely is what it looks like in real life. The people saying that obviously didn't have a very good experience, but it can be so bright that it lights up the landscape. Um,
Okay.
but you
So
don't really see
your
many
Nikon shot, are you talking 5 seconds, 10 seconds, longer,
three or four.
3 or 4 seconds? What would it have looked
Yeah.
like on the iPhone? I'm sure you did some on the iPhone as well.
The I've got some very good iPhone shots of the Northern Lights that are just a few seconds long. The thing about so we talked at the very start about computational photography. The way traditional what's the word I'm looking for? Light painting. The way traditional light painting works is the light that's in your scene will move through the scene whilst your shutter is open. Whereas when you shoot with the iPhone, all this computational stuff figures out what's going on, and it figures out that you probably want to freeze that motion. And so it sees that light moving, and you can do a 20-second exposure on the iPhone of the Northern Lights and end up with a shot that is sharp and the Northern Lights look frozen rather than blurred like you'd expect them to from a mirrorless camera because of that computational element. And interestingly as well, I've also noticed that if you have ambient light within the scene, you get a better iPhone shot of something dark. So if you have the Northern Lights with no moon on the landscape, you won't get as good a picture as if you had a moonlit landscape. And I can't figure that out yet. I don't know exactly why, but it seems like if you've got ambient light, you'll get a better Northern Lights picture with the iPhone.
Okay. Let's see. What those? Okay. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the Kelby conference, the iPhone photography conference. Let's remind everybody that if you have questions about the Northern Lights and photographing it, and I know you do, we are going to answer those in the second half hour. Right now, the iPhone photography conference put on by KelbyOne, March 27th, 28th, and 29th. The 27th is actually the pre-show, and I'm speaking at the pre-show. I'm doing my beginner's guide to iPhone photography. There are many people, believe it or not, who don't know about a lot of the hidden features within that camera menu. I'm going to show them to you, and I'm also going to talk to you about shooting video like a pro. That's what I'll be talking about, and Dave's going to be talking about settings for epic iPhone photos. So let's have Dave preview that class right now.
So basically, most people usually have gone to their iPhone as the camera that they have in their pocket. It's just the camera that they happen to have. And that has caused us to come up with the expression, the best camera you have is the one you have on you, the one you have in your pocket. But actually, the iPhone camera now is pretty incredible. And you, in a lot of cases, can replace your mirrorless or your DSLR with an iPhone and get pretty good results. The resolution isn't going to be as good if you're looking to shoot something that's going to be on a billboard, and there are situations where it isn't the right camera. But in most situations, the iPhone camera is more than powerful enough, and you just need to know how to do certain things, how to do a long exposure, how to use off-camera flash, how to make the most of everything that's within, like you said, the secret menus, the menu, they're not even secret, the menus that people don't look at and they don't necessarily understand, to really bring the power out of that iPhone camera and get the best shots possible. So there
Well,
are some settings.
they're not secret, but they're hidden, and most people don't know. They have no idea they're there, to the point where when I show the back of the iPhone to people at a conference and I tell them those are the three lenses, they look at me. Oh, is that what they do? Just a lot of people know you open up the camera app, click the shutter button, and just go from there. But there's a lot more that you can do. We talked about how 80% of what you want to do, you can do on the phone right now, which I hardly agree on. The only thing you're missing is sports photography and maybe some ultra close-ups and of course shooting the moon correctly and stuff like that. I'm off on a trip. On Monday, I'm going to Japan for 2 weeks, and I'm not bringing a big camera with me. I'm just bringing a bunch of iPhones and some accessories like a lot of chargers and grips and things like that. I don't need to have a big camera in Tokyo. Oh, I'm not going to Tokyo, but in Japan, unless I was taking ultra close-ups of anything, which I'm not going to do. If you're going to do a shrine, are you going to take a wide shot or an ultra close-up? I think you're going to do the wide shot. So that's my spiel.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So tell us more about what you'll be talking about in your 1 hour class.
I'm also going to be talking about some apps and some accessories that you can use to make things easier for yourself, to make it feel more like a camera than a phone. I'm going to talk about some of the methods that I've used in the past to take some of the pictures that I've got. In the past year or so, I've been using this iPhone camera so much more often, because it is powerful enough to get what I need. If we think about it, most of the photos we take nowadays are going on our social media, they're going in our memory banks, and they're going, on our phone. We're not really printing so much. We're not certainly not printing many things big. But for the photos we want to show the world what we've been up to remember the things that we've done, because obviously photographs instigate memories for us. Um, the iPhone camera is plenty powerful enough, and yeah, if you learn how to use it properly and how to really get the most out of the features it's got, and how to best match it with some good accessories and good apps that will help you, it's a fantastic camera to have. It really is.
And are you shooting on the 14?
No, 13 Pro Max.
Okay.
I've thought about it. I have no need to upgrade right now. It's good. So let's see what this 15 does.
Well, it's funny. It's March going into April, and the most common question I get is, should I buy a new iPhone now or wait? And I always say, well, at this point of the year, you might as well wait for September, because there'll be a new one anytime, and they're going to tell you it's the greatest, fastest, most powerful iPhone ever made. And but I have the 14 and the 13. I shoot on both, and I tend to do I do. I'm doing video on the 13 and stills on the 14, because I need to have two iPhones, obviously, when I'm traveling. The questions are coming up, and somebody just called you Peter. I think you're Dave. Your phone shots from your family vacation were brilliant. I don't know that that's to either of us, but thank you, Kimberly, for asking. And
there must be somebody in the chat called Peter somewhere.
there must be. I think so. So you're just doing that one class, right? Right, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've been doing classes for KelbyOne for some time?
Yeah, I don't know how long, but yeah, I write Scott's blog every Tuesday, like I said. I've got 6, I think, KelbyOne classes. I've done Photoshop World. I've been on the grid so many times. I don't know. Yeah, I'm in there.
I forgot to mention you have an amazing video on your channel, 40-minute documentary about your whole thing in the Northern Lights, correct? Tell everybody about that.
There's a few, yeah. So I did the past 2 winters. I've run series on YouTube called Due North and Due North 2. So one of the last ones on there is the one with Russell and a few other people, including Osman and Christina. Christina's the one with the dress that we just looked at. Documenting what we've been up to, what the Northern Lights are all about, how it all works, but also showing the iPhone photography that Russell and I were doing, mostly Russell, up in the Lofoten Islands. So yeah, that one's about 40 minutes. It's a good watch. But if you want to go and look at all the rest, there's plenty more on there. And I'd love the feedback as well, because when I'm up there more permanently towards the end of this year, I'm going to be creating a lot more sort of Arctic adventure videos.
Okay. You are moving to Norway, and remind everybody the name of your channel. Is it Dave Williams?
Dave Williams, yeah. Every platform, it's Dave Williams.
Okay, because Dave Williams could get mixed up with somebody else.
There's lots of Dave Williams, so many Dave Williams. So I had to find something unique, even though it sounds a bit weird. That was unique.
Okay, and you're moving. Okay, we're coming up to the half hour, and we're getting a lot of questions. I do want to talk about Norway. Let's just start hitting some of the questions, though, and we're not going to talk about Peter's photos. Paul and Susan Moore have a question for us, and I think it's. I'm going to let Dave answer it. What's the biggest print that you've made?
I don't know if this translates. Do you have A3?
A3 for a camera? A3 for a print?
A3 is a print size.
I don't know
Is that
A3.
a European thing? Is that, I think it's about 24 inches, maybe.
Okay.
But A3 is a print size over here. So I think that's the biggest one I've gone with so far from an iPhone photo. I think it's about 24 inches.
Okay, and I've done 20 by 30 in a canvas print on the iPhone 8, and it looks fantastic. And yeah, I mean, they print really well, particularly on canvas. Canvas does a really nice job, and it's more forgiving, I think, about the resolution than a straight paper print, and they're easy to hang on the wall. Canvasondemand.com is a really great site. How do you feel that they print, Dave?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. The resolution, as I say, it's never going to be billboard size. Well, it could be. It depends how far away you are from the pixels, whether you see them connecting or not. But for most walls in your home, it's going to print big enough from an iPhone now. I don't know what the maximum is actually off the top of my head, but there are certainly enough pixels in there to be able to print a pretty good picture. Um, as I said, it all comes back to everything about the iPhone camera. It is powerful enough. It can do more than a digital camera from like 20 years ago when we were impressed by 1 megapixel, 1.3. That 0.3 made a difference. Well, now we're way beyond that, and it's with, like I said, the thing that's in our pocket, our phone. So yeah, more than happy with there we go. 420 mil. Thank you, Peter. 420 millimeters. Yeah, but that you're still speaking English. You need to speak it inches.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what any of that is. I just know 20 by 30. There's another question. Let me go pull that up, which is from Kimberly, which is another very popular question. Do you use third-party apps? I'll let Dave go first, and then I'll tell you about my apps.
Shall I reel them off? Obviously, Adobe Lightroom Mobile. But then another really good post app is Lens Distortions, LD. Lens Distortions is basically a whole load of brushes and color grades and masks. And so it's really good for lighting effects, weather effects, color grading, and stuff like that. So that's Lens Distortions. It's about $25 a year or something from the App Store. The Profoto camera app allows me to shoot with strobes, the Profoto strobes that are compatible. So that's the C1 Plus, the A2, the B10X, and the B10, the A10. There's a whole range of their flashes if you're a flash photographer, a portrait photographer. For long exposures, rather than if it's a short long exposure, then I'll just use the iPhone native camera app. But if it's a really long exposure, like a few minutes, then it will be even longer. But that requires some hardware. You need to stabilize it. So for that, I use the Platypod Extreme, unless I absolutely need a tripod, in which case it will just be my regular three-legged thing, Bucky. And then I use the Peak Design Creator Kit, which, here we go. This is the Peak Design case. There's a little square cutout on the back of it, and that fits into a tripod holder. Just sort of, I don't have it with me, but it clips in like that and holds it rock steady. Because if your iPhone has an accelerometer in it, it knows if it's moving. So if you want to do a long exposure with the native camera app, it knows whether it can give you 10 seconds or 30 seconds based on whether you're on a tripod or not, because it knows if you're moving.
Okay. Well, we just lost that question. I wanted you to see it. From Peter, which is the A3 is 11.7 times 16.5. So my 2030s, my 20 by 30 is bigger. So,
Okay.
and looks great. My apps. Let me tell you about my apps. So the first thing I do is I shoot with the Apple camera app, the native camera app. I use 9 times out of 10. I pretty much shoot every photo in that app. I think it's a pretty good app. I have not, as much as I love Adobe Lightroom Mobile, which is my go-to app afterwards, I don't want to shoot in it. Sometimes I can't find the photos. They get hidden. And I have an easier time in the regular app keeping track of where everything is. And I'll do the first edit in the Photos app. And then if I want to go to the next level, I'll go to Lightroom Mobile. And then if I want to go crazy, bizarre, out of this world, I go to Google Snapseed, where if you use the HDR or the drama tools, you can make some really big giant clouds look even darker and more menacing. Those are the 3 apps that I use on a regular basis, and all are free. You can do add-ons to Lightroom Mobile, particularly if you're a Creative Cloud member, and you can do masking, which I don't think you can do for free. But you're looking at some pretty great free apps.
Yeah, I haven't used Snapseed for a while, but I do remember good things from it.
Okay, so let's see. We had another one. Biggest print. Uh, Third-party apps. Oh, Roy has a question. How do they put 9 photos into one in, so quickly? You have any theories on this, Dave?
It's very fast processing. This is it. The A9 chip that's in these things. It's very
Oh, I,
fast
th-
processing.
I, th-
When you're taking a photo on your iPhone, it's looking at the scene. It's surveying the scene. It's taking data from each pixel like a raw file should. Each pixel is examined individually to make sure it's not blown, to make sure it's exposed correctly, to make sure the colors are right. Everything is being looked at, and then it's being smashed in together. So I wouldn't say it's however many photos together in one. I would say that it's how can I right. Let's backtrack a little bit. When you take a long exposure on your iPhone, let's say you do a 5 second exposure, it's not a 5 second exposure, and here's why. Your iPhone camera will only do a maximum of a 1 second exposure, and even then it's computational. So when you're doing a 5 second exposure, it's putting together, it's blending 5 1 second shots. But those are already computational shots. Those are already not truly real. So it's very fast processing that remains as a raw file with Apple ProRAW. But then you look at what we talked about with Samsung's Moon thing. That's not real either. It is real, but it's not real. The AI is doing everything, it's figuring it out, it's doing it so fast, and it's anticipating what it thinks you want to see, what it thinks you're trying to focus on, what it thinks the color is meant to be based on the light that's hitting the camera. It's trying to figure all of this out and please you by making it this quick. Open the camera and then there's the picture there, and that's how fast it is. Everything's perfectly figured out at lightning speed. There we go, by the A16 chip.
A16, and you know what? The next one will be the A17.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we talked about hidden stuff. The photos are not overexposed, they're not underexposed, they're not out of focus. Like all the pictures that we used to take when we were just starting, that's what it used to be like. I mean, not all, but we had a lot of really bad photos, and now we just don't tend to have a lot of bad photos until they're bad. My classic example is taking pictures of stained glass at a church. The light meter will try to expose for the wall, and then the light will be overexposed, and you'll really have to whack it down. There's a way to bring it down by at least 2 stops if you go into the camera menu, one of those great hidden things where there's an exposure dial. Most people aren't aware of that, but you can always save a photo like that in situations like that. We have another question from JR. Let's take a look. Given Dave's northern adventures, which camera and/or settings have worked best for that dreaded bright sun and vast snow combination?
So your camera's meter is always going to read under in the snow. So you need to overexpose a little bit because the amount of light entering, or the amount of white in front of the camera, is tricking the camera sensor because the amount of snow. So you need to expose over, otherwise you're going to get a very strange looking image. Also, the white balance is quite often thrown completely out because it thinks it's blue when it's not. So a good snow picture is slightly overexposed from what the camera thinks is correct, or the light meter in the camera thinks is correct, and slightly warmer than what the white balance sensor reading should be if it was an auto white balance. So there's 2 things about the snow. But in terms of the camera and the equipment you use, it's all down to what the subject is. If I'm taking a picture of a landscape and I'm using a 14mm, for example, it's going to be very different to if I'm shooting say a reindeer at 150 millimeters. So that's all down to
Okay.
what the subject matter is.
Well, let's put it this way. You go out there, you're shooting at what time of night? Are you at 3 a.m.? Are you at 8 p.m.? What time are you shooting the Northern Lights?
You said bright sun. So this is a daytime.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying in general, you were doing night skies. So you go out there for your classic shot. Okay. What time are you there?
For the Northern Lights,
Yeah.
it could be any time from sunset to sunrise.
Okay.
It could be any time.
Is sunset 4 p.m. in the afternoon? I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
It depends. So if you're there in
When
December,
you were just there,
yeah,
right? What time did the sun set?
in December the sun didn't come up.
Okay. So you could shoot at 10 in the morning and do the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
So you're standing there and you're seeing a bunch of green in the sky. You pull out your iPhone. Do you just go psh, and take a picture, or are you
Yeah.
doing more?
You can just pull it out and take a picture. Your camera is smart enough to figure out what's going on and it's a night photo. If not, you need to turn on your night photo setting, which is very easy to do because when you open the camera app, you get this arrow in the middle. Look at that. Isn't that
Yeah,
beautiful?
the
You get this
the
arrow in the
hidden
middle
arrow.
at the top.
Yeah.
You tap on the arrow and it brings up some settings at the bottom. And the second one across is night mode. And you can change your exposure time with this slider. So when you take a photo of the Northern Lights, if your night mode is already set to come on by default, it will automatically give you a few seconds, maybe a 1 to 5 second exposure to get that photo of the Northern Lights. But you can manually change it to 10 seconds, or if you're using a tripod, you can push it up to 30 seconds.
Okay. So did you do 30-second exposures on the iPhone?
Some of them, yeah, it depends. Some of them are 1 second. It depends on how bright the light is. So if the Northern Lights are really strong and really bright, 1 second. If they're not very bright, then you can go back to the 30 seconds and really soak it all in.
I'm taking it that you did not have bright sun on the snow if the sun did not come out.
Well, in January, when the sun came back, yeah, they're in the winter and in the Northern Adventures in general, forgetting the Northern Lights, yeah, there is very bright sun, especially when it's low on the horizon.
Okay.
So you need to, when you're up there in the snow and the sun hits the snow, you need to consider these kind of things. That was a good question.
Okay. And the peak time for you is December, though?
Northern Lights season in the Arctic runs, like if you're 100 miles plus of the Arctic Circle, it runs from roughly September to March.
Okay.
Roughly.
So we can.
But it all depends on your location. Where I was, it will still be going on until early April.
All right. Peter has a question. Speaking of white balance, do you ever use a color gray card to get accurate color?
I don't. And I know some people, obviously with traditional DSLR mirrorless photography, a lot of people would, particularly portrait, fashion photographers, those kinds of things, or even product photographers where the color is that important. But no. And interestingly, I haven't tried it on an iPhone. I wonder if it would make much difference when you take it into post-process. I'm going to have to try that now. That's a good one.
Could you have just shot the Northern Lights just with an iPhone and left your Nikon at home? How would you have done?
Yes, but I wouldn't have wanted to because of the other styles of photography and videography that I do. But yes, it's entirely possible. I wrote a blog post about exactly how to do it over on idavewilliams.com about how to get Northern Lights photos on your iPhone. If I was doing for Northern Lights photos, if I wasn't selling them, if it was just for memories and stuff like that, then yes, absolutely on the iPhone. But we're not quite there yet for that kind of photography for being able to sell those pictures.
Okay. So speaking of which, question from Rosalie, is the native camera app the same as shooting in RAW? That would give you, if you had the 14, which Dave does not have, but I have, it would give you a 48 megapixel photo, much higher resolution. Your file size is at like 50 megabytes. You can shoot RAW in the native camera app. You can also shoot RAW in Lightroom, correct, and other apps as well.
Yeah. So you have to go into your settings on the iPhone camera app and turn on RAW. We'll do another show and tell. Right here in the corner, there's live mode, and then next to it is RAW. So you can't use RAW and live mode at the same time. So if you tap on that RAW, then RAW photos are on, live mode is off. But yeah, it's essentially the same. Again, looking at the computational side of things, it's not necessarily a true RAW. It is the processor telling you what it thinks each pixel is meant to be. But each pixel is fully adjustable. like a raw file is rather than like a JPEG is. So
Okay.
yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, and you have to process the photo afterwards. If you buy one of those phones with, I think it's now 256 gigabytes as the entry point, you will fill that phone up really fast. So it's something to
Yeah,
think about. It's the same thing like if you shoot ProRes video on the iPhone, you're out of room. I mean, you're just like out of room really quickly. So it's
yeah.
something to think about. Peter has another question.
Okay.
Given that the iPhone takes lots of shorter exposures for long exposure images, does that mean that the noise is reduced in the overall blended shot?
Yes, because as we know from stacking with Photoshop, image stacking in Photoshop, that is a great way to get rid of image noise and sensor noise. So that is essentially what it's doing. It's stacking a bunch of shorter exposures. However, there are some other artifacts, depending on how dark an image is, that the iPhone still hasn't quite been able to deal with right. But you can deal with those in post. So it looks like chunky pixels sometimes, but yeah, you can deal with those in post. So essentially, yes, it is smoothing things out and it is getting rid of image noise and sensor noise. Um, but that's all part of the tiny, tiny sensor that's in the iPhone. It it's a problem that they've had to deal with almost immediately because of the size of that sensor. So their computational stuff is very ahead of things in terms of noise reduction on the iPhone.
Since you did write a blog post about how to shoot the Northern Lights on the iPhone, let me put you on the spot. Give people a few little tips on maybe for next year, grab your iPhone 15, go to Norway, and get going. What would you suggest to them?
Well, if anyone wants to come, I'll be doing a workshop in the Lofoten Islands. It's centered around Viking photography, but the Northern Lights obviously are going to be a huge feature. Um, the um, the tips for the Northern Lights are the biggest thing is don't just take a picture of the sky. Think about the foreground. Have something that people can relate to. So if you take a picture of just the sky on the Northern Lights, it can be very pretty and very, colorful and very nice. But there's nothing to really relate to. So if you have mountains or terrain in the foreground, and that gives you relatability, so people can see that's a mountain, that's the Northern Lights, so that's the scale. It can also add some depth to the image. So it's far more interesting than just a picture straight up of the sky. And I will say as well, if you want to take a picture of a person on under the Northern Lights on your iPhone, that is entirely possible. But rather than when you light paint somebody on a mirrorless camera and you give a pop of flash, that won't work on an iPhone. It needs to be a low, constant light source throughout the whole maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 15 seconds that you're exposing for. But that is entirely possible. So if you want a souvenir of yourself standing under the Northern Lights, an iPhone will do it.
Okay. But you would bring a camera with you as well,
I would, yeah.
right? Roy has a question here. Will there be demonstrations actually taking pictures using some of the settings that you'll be showing? I know we're not doing it here, so I'm hoping he's asking about your workshop.
The workshop is camera oriented rather than Northern Lights or rather than iPhone oriented. But if he's asking about the iPhone conference, I have done some screen recordings of taking pictures just to demonstrate a few things.
Okay,
That I'm
and
going
I've got demos at my class as well. To close up on the Northern Lights, so you go there, you bring a tripod, you bring an iPhone, you bring your charged battery, you bring you've cleared your storage, you've thought about what to do if you run out of storage, what to do if you run out of battery, maybe bring a second phone. Any other tips and tricks and tools?
use the cloud to your advantage if you're thinking about storage. You When you go away, you're obviously going to take a lot of pictures, and if it's something like the Northern Lights, if you haven't seen it before, you're going to be standing there taking picture after picture after picture. And so, yeah, you might get through your storage very quick. One great way to deal with it, if you're an Adobe subscriber to the Creative Cloud, is to use the Lightroom storage plan that you get with that. Depending on your plan, you get different sizes. Make the most of that. So upload from your camera roll into the Adobe Cloud every day or every night after you finish shooting, or use the Apple Cloud if you've got that plan. But the number one tip for the Northern Lights, honestly, enjoy the experience. Don't worry so much about the photos. Just it's an experience that many people have got on their bucket lists, and they've tried many times and failed to see the Northern Lights. It is to just savor the experience. It's an incredible thing. But if you do have it on your bucket list, this coming winter is going to be the best Northern Lights for the past 11 years, because we're currently approaching and at the very beginning of solar cycle 25, which means we are now at solar maximum. The sun's activity is the biggest it's been in 11 years, and we're going to get huge Northern Lights. I don't know if you saw in the news 2 weeks ago or thereabouts, there were Northern Lights visible throughout most of Europe, down to Germany, throughout the United States, into the northern of the lower 48. It's because solar maximum is here and the sun is really ramping up its energy. So it's going to be at its absolute peak this coming winter.
Okay, so best Northern Lights of all time, winter 2023. We're talking December? When is your workshop?
All the way through September to March. It will be very, very, very strong. My workshops are, there's 6 of them, 6 dates. They're very exclusive, so there's not many spots available. It's Vikings, reindeer, Northern Lights, and landscapes, and it is September, October, and January. Two dates in each month.
Go to idavewilliams.com for more information and see some of Dave's incredible photos. I have a question. Video. What if you just let the video roll and to catch the Northern Lights? How's that looking?
iPhone wise, not very good. Not yet. I can't wait for it to be good. Because that's like that would solve so many things, so many problems. I've only recently been able to start filming the Northern Lights, and that's with a mirrorless, with a Sony a7S III. So that technology has only just got to the point where we can film at such a high ISO without noise or anything like that. So it's not possible on an iPhone. It's possible on some mirrorless. The go-to is the Sony a7S range, S2 and the S3. But yeah, imagine you could make a video on your iPhone of the Northern Lights and just pull out frames without any issues, without any noise. That would be perfect, but we're not there yet.
But you don't see the Northern Lights moving along. You didn't try to do a time lapse. None of that really worked?
Not on the iPhone, not yet.
Okay. And when you shot on the a7S III, what kind of shutter speed were you on?
The shutter speed was 1/30th to keep it, correct if you're a cinematographer. The ISO, however, was anywhere from 12,800 up to 204,600.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like pushing it when I get to 60. Yeah, when I get to 64,000, I think I'm pushing it. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the reason that works, and it's great for video because in video the noise doesn't stick around. If you take a photo at that ISO, it's going to be packed full of noise. But because it's video, the pixels are moving, aren't they? The noise doesn't matter so much, so you can push the limits far more.
Okay, so Dave, if you're shooting at 240,000 ISO for video, is that what you're using for stills too?
No. Think of the Northern Lights like a waterfall. So when you shoot a waterfall, if you want to smooth it all out, you go for a longer exposure, and if you want to freeze the motion, you go for a faster exposure. So the Northern Lights are like a slower version of a waterfall. So if you go for the lowest ISO you can to push the shutter speed, depending on how much motion you want, whether you want the lights to be moving across the sky or whether you want to freeze them in, the pillars that you see. So no, the ISO will be generally, like if I'm doing a test shot, I'll start at about 4,500 and then adjust it from there, and playing the shutter speed to get the motion against the ISO to get the sensitivity.
Okay, and you're usually at 3 to 10 seconds for your shutter speed?
Yeah. So my baseline test the water shot is 10 seconds, 4,500 ISO, at f2.8, and then I'll make all the adjustments from what I see from that.
Okay, so let's shift back to the iPhone. We've had a contest for one lucky person to win free admission to the KelbyOne iPhone Photography Conference, March 27th through the 30th. Virtual conference. You don't have to go there. It'll be on the screen. For people who are not going to win, you could buy a ticket and you don't have to attend that day. There'll be replay for up to a year. And there's a lot of really great people speaking. I know this guy Dave Williams is going to be there, and he's going to talk about great settings for epic photos. I'm going to talk about beginning iPhone photography and how to shoot video like a pro. Scott Kelby, Eric Kuna, Rick Salmon, Lisa Carney, a lot of really great speakers, Frederick Van Johnson. And so we've had this contest here where it's really easy to enter. All you have to do is submit an iPhone photo to our Flickr group. The URL is in the description below, and it's pretty simple. Go to Flickr. If you're not a Flickr member, register. It's free. Upload your photo and then assign it to the group. The winner of this week's contest, and actually before I do that, we have another contest coming up. I'm absent for the next 2 Thursdays because I'm going to Japan, and I'll be back on April 6th. We will announce the winner of the next contest, and the winner for that contest is going to win a Belkin power bank that will give you extra power and is also a wireless charger worth $60. I think I have a picture of it here. That's a pretty cool prize, and certainly every photographer needs one. Here is our winner, Terry Babacan. You know, it rained in Los Angeles recently, and a lot of people went out and took a lot of rain photos. I just love this. I love the bubbles. Look at the detail in the bubbles on the rain. And look at the bright yellow. I don't know. This picture really spoke to me. What do you think of it, Dave?
Look at that. Look at the detail in the water bubble on the right, the one that's half on, half off.
I know.
That's incredible. Yeah, I'm impressed. I like it.
Okay, so congratulations, Terry. And I will get you the information real quick. A little plug for my Photowalks TV series, which this week and Saturday we will be in Las Vegas photographing the skyline from all the garage roofs in Sin City. That's where you get the best photos of Las Vegas, is from the garage roofs, in case you didn't know. And I went to every one of them to prove it to you. Dave Williams, idavewilliams.com, and I believe it's idavewilliams at Instagram as well.
Yeah. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you are, Facebook, Dave Williams.
Okay, and idavewilliams.com. You all want to read that blog post on photographing the Northern Lights. You want to sign up for his workshops next year, and you want to read his blog post every Tuesday at scottkelby.com. I'm jeffersongraham.net. jeffersongraham.net, photowalkstv.com. I have a picture. Yeah, there we go. photowalkstv.com. There we go. Go check out the website. Go check out the show. I'll be missing you in the next 2 weeks, but I'll be running around taking pictures like a madman. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. And Dave, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was really good fun, especially diving into some of those strange subjects that people don't talk about very often. Like, how does the iPhone actually work?
Yes. All right. So we'll see you soon.
See you later.